Morning, everybody. Today is June 14th, 2021. Want to talk a little bit today about getting pricing, work orders, purchase orders, takeoffs. I brought up takeoffs in a client call, and a couple of them actually. And the client actually, that wasn't a term that they were familiar with or had heard of before. So that's, I guess, the first thing we'll kind of go over is what is a takeoff and how do you get that done. So once you have a full set of blueprints, and we're going to use the lumber company for example, you're going to send that full set of blueprints to the lumber company. So takeoff is when the lumber company takes the blueprint and they figure out exactly how much material you're going to need for the house. You know, how many 2x4s, how many rolls of the sill foam that go beneath the sill plate, how many 2x6s, how many headers. They basically are going to figure out and put together an entire lumber list, and that is doing the takeoff. Now, as you can imagine, that's a pretty tedious thing, and I know there's software that helps with this, but I've never personally done one, so it's still got to be somewhat time consuming, I would think. So I know some of the clients that I've been talking with have said, you know, it's been 6-8 weeks since they've given a blueprint to the lumber company and they still don't have a bid back yet. And it's just because that, doing the takeoff there, if they've got 50 other blueprints that were in front of you or in there at the same time, it could take some time to get that back. And like the cider will do the same thing. For example, if you're going to send the blueprint to the cider, he's going to do a takeoff. He's going to figure out how much siding that there's going to be, and then that's going to go into what the price is. I know that there is software that you could purchase, and I don't have any recommendations for this, unfortunately, but there is software that you can purchase that will help you do takeoffs, so that you could actually do them yourself. Because then, if you're able to do it yourself, for sure that you're not going to be overestimating. And with certain things, I guess it's okay to overestimate. With lumber, you can do a lumber return and return the extra lumber. With some products, you may not be able to, or it may be more difficult to do that. And if you don't have a lot of experience with doing it, you may feel uncomfortable with doing a takeoff for the lumber on a home because you don't want to screw up and underestimate or make a mistake there and have your budget be off and then not have enough material there. So just want to jump in real quick and talk about my membership, which I've got going. We are up to 10 members as of today, so I'm really happy about this. Definitely looking for feedback. I'm doing a 30-day free trial so that you can come in, you can kind of check things out. You're not going to have to start paying until the next month. But so this past Friday I did a Zoom call. I was going to do a live Q&A, and I posted in the community a couple times in advance that I was going to be doing this. And at that point, I think there were only 6 members, and obviously they weren't able to make it. So I was there waiting on my computer, had the Zoom all set up and just waiting for somebody to click on it and come in and answer some questions. And didn't happen, but I know it will in the future. And I know that's going to be a really cool aspect about this membership, is the fact that we can see each other face to face. We can talk about things and answer questions. There's just a lot of cool features in it, and I'll be adding weekly videos. Last week I actually added 2. But these aren't going to be videos that I'm making for YouTube. I want these to be different ones that I'm putting on the membership, specific for the membership. So maybe just getting into a little more detail with certain things. All right, well, check it out. Links in the description below. Back to the video. The other option would be there are actually companies, and I've had companies that have reached out to me before, and they are actually companies that do takeoffs. And you can send them the blueprint and let them know what material you would want for them to do for the takeoff, and then that's something that they would do for you. Now, again, I haven't personally used any companies like this. I've had companies just reach out to me and ask if we were interested in that service. And at least right now at this point in time, we're not, but it definitely could be something that in the future we might want to consider doing. Because then you could take your blueprint, send it to this third-party company. They could give you the takeoff for the lumber. Now, if you're just sending the lumber list to the lumber company, they should be able to turn around a price for you really that day. Now, depending on their workload, they may not actually get to look at it and do it until a couple days, a week, who knows? But really, it doesn't take that much time if they've got the list of all the material that's needed to give a price. And that would hold true for any siding, roofing. If you're able to go to the roofing supply company and say, this is how many square of shingles that I need, they can give you a price on it, as opposed to sending in the blueprint and, hey, I need you to let me know how many squares of shingles that we need. That can end up taking a little bit longer there. So there would be a couple of options there, and this kind of goes along with that. So right now, the way that we do things is we send our blueprint, our selections, all of the information that we have to the contractor, to the vendor, and then they're basically going to give us a price and say, okay, this, like the framer, for example, we'll send him the blueprint. He'll look at it. He's got a number per square foot that he typically uses, but if it's something real big and custom, he may throw a little fluff in there, or maybe it's got a lot more gables than another house, so he'll charge a certain amount per gable. But anyways, we'll give him the blueprint, and then he'll come back and give us a price to build the house. And that is, sending out for bids and getting bids, and that's one way to price the house. The other way to do it is to send out purchase orders. So that would basically be where you're going to send something out to the framer and tell the framer that, hey, this is, here's the blueprint, here's all the information for the job, this is the amount that I'm going to pay you for it. And then the framer could then say, okay, yeah, that's, that looks good to me, we'll do it that way. Or with the I don't think you can do that with lumber and the lumber companies, but like the cider, for example, you could send the cider a purchase order, and you could say, this is how many squares of siding there are going to be, and the blueprint, the type of siding, and then you can send him a purchase order that basically says, this is the amount that I'm going to pay you to do the siding. And I guess what that does is that maybe keeps some of the contractors a little more in check. So as opposed to you just, here you go, here's all the info, give me a price. If you're actually telling them this is the price that I need to work in order to have you do the job, it could work out more in your benefit there. And again, I don't have personal experience with doing it that way because we don't do it that way, but I can definitely see advantages for doing it that way. Because again, if somebody's just super busy and you're asking for a number for them, they could give you a number that is much higher than if you were actually telling them the amount that you want it done for. So that's kind of how those things go into play and intertwine with each other. If you're getting a takeoff done, or you're figuring out how many squares of siding or shingles that you need, you can then in turn put together a purchase order, and basically you could supply the shingles, or sometimes with some of the roofing, the siding contractors, they'll actually supply the material. But either way, you could tell them how much you need. And so that would help kind of expedite the process, make things a little bit quicker. You're I think more in control because you know how many squares of shingles there are on the home. You're not leaving something to chance where you're basically giving the cider all of the, just the blueprints, and here you figure out what the amount of siding is there, because they're not going to care as much as you are about your job. So they may order, they may say, I just don't want to run out, I'm going to order more than I need. So now you're paying more up front than what you actually need. So those are just some different scenarios and things that can happen based off of doing it that way. So those are the two different types of ways that you get numbers and put a budget together, purchase orders and getting bids. And sometimes with certain things, the electrical, for example, so as you get more experience, you'll be able to kind of figure out, what am I being charged per square foot? And then on top of that, using electric, for example, are they charging additional for recessed lights or certain things like that, to where you're actually able to kind of figure out what the pricing is based off of your experience. And then you'd feel more comfortable giving a purchase order to the electrician and saying, like, this is the blueprint. You already know how many outlets, how many recessed lights are in the house. There's under cabinet lighting, some floor outlets, and now you're giving the electrician the price in which you want, he or she to do the job for. So those are the two different ways: bidding, sending out purchase orders. Those are the two different ways to get a final number for the house. And then in order to get that bid back from certain companies, again, you may want to look into a third-party vendor that can actually do the takeoffs for you. Because again, with some of the clients that I've spoken with, they've sent in blueprints. It's been 8 weeks. I mean, that's 2 months. And they don't even have a quote back yet. So that's going to be some of the difficulty. If you're just starting, this is your first one, you're just kind of getting into this. The lumber companies are most likely prioritizing other builders that they've worked with before, and maybe larger builders. So if you could just go in there with your lumber list and send the lumber list over and, hey, this is exactly what I need, you would be able to get that price back a lot quicker than if you were sending in the blueprint and waiting for them to go through it and do the takeoff. So I feel like I'm starting to reiterate a little bit, so that's really all that I have. Thank you so much for your time. If you don't subscribe, please subscribe. Click on notifications so you can get notified of more videos like this. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless.